Lord of the Rings Tactics on PSP is another tactics game, but isn't the Third Age game, even though both of them were coming out at similar times and both of them have kind of tactic systems. They are different. Now, its tactics system seems to work uniquely, at least to me. Maybe that isn't unique, but if it isn't, I don't know. Basically, instead of the way you move in Shining Force, where you move each person one at a time and there's limited ranges and stuff, with this one, you have a move phase, an attack phase, but it's not like Shining Forces. It's everybody. You move everyone all at once, they move everyone all at once, and then you have your attack phase where you order all your attacks and all your attacks play out at once, and so do theirs. It's honestly different, and while I prefer Shining Force's style, this one's fine too, and it makes you think a bit ahead. It also makes battles go much faster, which is nice, because if there's anything I've learned from playing tactic games, it's that you will be grinding for a really long time, so being able to just go a lot faster, so much better. The game has the look of the films, which is always welcome, and even has 2 campaigns. Now they're basically the same campaign, all the levels are the same, it just changes the objectives and the people in your army. Because you can be the good side or the bad side. And this is pretty cool because the look of the Lord of the Rings villains, I fucking love them. Sauron is always so fucking cool to me, but rarely do you get to pick who's in your squad, and often you have 1 or 2 heroes and then just a bunch of expendable men on both sides. This ends up being fine, but I really do wish I could choose my team. I think that would add a lot. Instead, it makes me upgrade someone like Gothmog when I'd much rather be using the Witch King and such. I will say, each character can eventually unlock an ability that lets your hero attack all enemies that exist at once, and it's a little overpowered. If you get enough heroes to do that all in a row, you can end battles pathetically quickly. It's a bit broken. There were battles I ended in 2 turns, and I was like, holy fuck, watch out! Sauron and Saruman together, badass combo. Villains have a lot of debuffs to hurt heroes, and the heroes get a lot of buffs to upgrade themselves. And personally, I found the buffs more useful than the debuffs. I'd still choose the villains because they look cool, but I think the heroes just worked better. They did a good job adding lots of battles from the films and also a lot of filler battles not in the films. There's no story at all. The way Shining Force works is like you have your fighting sections, and then you have your story sections where you're going through like the towns, trading items, whatever. That's not how this works. With this, you fight, and then you get taken to your upgrade screen, and then you fight, and then you get taken to your upgrade screen. There's no story. It's all tactic fighting. And it's fun, but isn't anything exciting enough for me to love it, unless you really love that gameplay, which I found fine. But on my Evil playthrough, I was really getting burned out from just the gameplay and the same levels that I was now playing twice over, doing both campaigns. I'd say it's fun for a run, but the replay value, not very high. I don't think I'll ever come back to it, but it's a totally good game, like 7 out of 10. Lord of the Rings The Third Age is another movie tie-in game, but it actually goes through all 3 movies. This is an RPG where you have your own party who's following the main party from the film and sometimes meeting up with them. You have a Gondor soldier with a mysterious past, and he's a warrior, so that's your Aragorn replacement. You have a magical elf who is the Gondor warrior's protector and love interest, so that's a mix of your Legolas and Gandalf and Arwen. You have an archer ranger to finish off, making sure you have your full Aragorn and Legolas. You have a grumpy axe-wielding dwarf to make sure you have your Gimli. And yes, these are not 1-to-1, but it's still a strange choice to give me new characters, but make them blend so close to the old ones. You also have a warrior from Rohan. She wasn't born in Rohan, but moves there, and after her village was destroyed by orcs, she joined your party, and I actually like this one. She's original. Unfortunately, she sucks, so out of the entire party, she's the one I never use. And last off, you have another Rohan warrior with a spear who's played by the same voice actor as Mario, but fortunately, I could not tell.
Creature rallies his force one final time!
The combat is very Final Fantasy-esque with random encounters, which usually isn't my thing, but it was fun here, and I probably pushed through it because I love Lord of the Rings so much. Honestly, the combat was kind of fun most of the time. Barathor is the Gondor guy, and he has a lot of ways to buff your team, as well as being a hard hitter, and he was my number one. You gotta keep him. Idriel is my elf healer, and she can heal and she can remove negative effects off the team, so she was a must as well. The next three I swapped out depending on the circumstance, as you can only have 3 members, but you can swap them out in battle. Elegost is good for range, attacking multiple enemies, and for wargs. Hadhod is my dwarf, and he's basically a hard-hitting tank who can be useful for slowing down enemy turns. Eodin hits really hard and is really important for debuffing enemies when they get buffed. And Morwen is a glass cannon. She hits hard, but not hard enough for me to put her in because she dies way too quick for her to be worth keeping in. The game does have its own cutscenes, but I feel like it's a small percentage of them, as most of the cutscenes are just straight up shots from the movie, which is unfortunate. Probably pretty cool in 2005, but in present day, I would like more in-game cutscenes. Not that I dislike the movie, I just would prefer more in-game story. Fortunately, the movie cutscenes are skippable and optional, but the game cutscenes are not, and I appreciate that. You also get a bit of a world to run around in. I wouldn't quite say it's an open world, it's more of like a linear open world, kind of like a Jade Empire or KOTOR type of world, only with random encounters. The gear is pretty neat, and it can be found both from fights and exploring, and you also level up a lot, which I enjoyed. And like I said, we do follow the official team, and sometimes we meet up with them, which causes fights that are non-canon to happen. Like we encounter the Watcher in the water, and we help Gandalf fight the Balrog. And when we do get to use a main character for a battle, they're always far more powerful than our team, which is the way it should be. Now as we go on, the game starts to get weird and jumpy, and by that I mean it jumps all over the place. Like we start off with a lot of open area to run in, and that slowly dies off. Combat goes from fun to too many fights in a row to where it feels tedious. Even the story starts to rush things. I mean, the game starts with your Gondor and Elf character as love interests, and they even kiss and such. But then suddenly, she's like, hey, you are actually meant to be with the Rohan girl. And that was really never established except for a tiny scene where they almost held hands, but didn't. And they don't have any chemistry together. And next thing you know, the Rohan girl, she's apparently your love interest. And she gets stabbed, but she doesn't die, even though it's a Morgul blade. No, what actually happens is Aragorn heals her from that, which I'm pretty sure he can't do because Frodo got stabbed by that. And that was a whole thing, and Aragorn couldn't just heal him. He had to take him to Rivendell to seek elf magic. And even if you were like, okay, well then we can heal him with elf magic, don't use Aragorn. I have an elf mage on my team. She is both an elf and magical, and is part of this love triangle, so it would be perfect to use her for plot reasons. Most characters don't have a lot going on for them. The Gondor warrior has the most, but his story is strange, very weak, and needs fleshed out. Like the game starts real fucking strong, and then it's like they realize they had to hustle to get the game out, so the second half of the game feels super rushed. The first half at least feels more complete. The second half is very repetitive, barely has any walking space, is filled with so many fights and just tons of filler, and it jumps around in the story a lot. It really flip-flops on the ending for me. We jumped straight from fighting Oliphants, which were hard as balls until I realized that if you make them unable to stun, they're not that bad, to fighting the Eye of Sauron, which was a bizarre choice in battle. We aren't fighting Sauron, we are fighting the Eye of Sauron, which is wild. I love Lord of the Rings and I love the movies, but the choice to make Sauron not a reborn body and be a literal eye, which is not how the books had it, was the most baffling choice the movies did, in my opinion. And now to actually fight the Eye, not only is it ridiculous, but this Eye isn't fun at all. It's tedious as shit and like really overpowered. I only won this fight because the Eye seemed to take mercy on me by stop using some of its more powerful moves, and then I buffed my team with so much shit that they could hit like a train. And then Gandalf at the end of defeating the Eye of Sauron and throwing the ring into Mount Doom is like, "Your journey has just begun." Bitch, what the fuck is left? I just helped save Middle-earth. I defeated a Dark Lord. Is my journey not over? Did my journey not just end? What the fuck you mean it just began? What is left? It's over. It's done. We fought Nazgul. We fought Drakes. We fought so many orcs. I just got done fighting the Witch King not long ago. The fucking Witch King. Not the Witch Grunt. Nah, this was a Witch King, so that should be the end, right? And you're over here talking about my journey has just begun? Bitch, please, what could even be left? Also, when you finish, there's an evil mode. It's not as good as Tactics evil mode, though, because it's not really even a campaign. It's more of bonus missions where you can play as orcs and trolls and such. So it's a neat bonus, but nothing compared to Tactics evil mode. And while there is a lot about this game I like, the latter half made me not like it as much, and I do prefer the combat of Tactics compared to this. I'd still say it's a good game. My favorite part was running around exploring Helm's Deep, talking to people, and they were like, "Shit man, we're gonna die," and that was kind of cool. I also loved using Aragorn when he got his undead army, because sometimes he could one-hit kill enemies. I also found numerous bugs in the game, and they're actually rather charming and silly. None of them were game-breaking, they were just funny to look at. Overall, this is a pretty good game, and if it had more time to cook and flesh out the story and characters and actual latter half of the game, I'd say it could be an all-time great. And while I don't think I will return to the game just because of the second half of it, I did really enjoy this game, and it is for sure worth your time to play.